Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. And today we have got Morsels for Mental Manducation. Back with C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. This time, the chapter is Christianity, hard or easy? But first, in another Pipe by Lee Trailblazer, this time carved. You can see the striations on that. This was almost unsmoked when I got it. It had either not been smoked much, or the guy I got it from, who's also a Lee aficionado, really cleaned it out well. I like this one a little better than the last one I smoked because someone at some point had the good sense to cut the stinger. I just can't bring myself to do that to a pipe because I keep them intact. But this one didn't have it, and the draw is definitely more open. In it, some of that Sutliff Kringle flake that I was smoking the other day, and we will talk about that more tomorrow. Last Morsels, we talked about this concept of putting on Christ, or taking on his characteristics. We're coming back to that because it really is core to Christianity, to what it's all about. So I've heard people say things like, oh, well, Christianity it's just another system of morality. It's a set of do's and don'ts, rules that you have to follow. This betrays a complete misunderstanding of what Christianity is. There are Christians who believe those things too, and sadly, they don't understand what Christianity really is all about. You see, if I am trying to live a moral life, I'm trying to do more good than bad, my first issue is who defines what good and bad is. Now, once I've done that, I still wind up trying to expend my moral energy in such a way that I'm doing more good things than bad things. In fact, ideally, I want to do all good things and no bad things. But as we've discovered, our human nature is such that we can't do that. We can't perfectly follow the moral law. So what eventually happens if I'm just trying to live a good moral life? Is one of two things. I either give up because I acknowledge that I can't be good enough, or I wind up exhausting myself in some way, whether it's physically or morally, emotionally, by trying to satisfy an ever-growing set of good things to do and bad things to avoid. Maybe you wouldn't fall into one of those two traps, but I know I would. Now, put this against Christianity. Christianity is not just a set of rules to do good things and bad things to avoid. You see, Jesus doesn't say, I want X% of your time and I want Y% of your money. No, in fact, he says, I want all of you. That's hard. He doesn't just want a little bit. Well, the reason for that is he wants to completely transform us. He wants us to become more like him and to have relationship with him. Basically, he wants to take us where we are, which is an Lewis uses an analogy similar to this, and I'd heard it elsewhere, possibly by people who have read Lewis. And that is that we're like a field of grass when what's needed is wheat. Well, you don't get wheat from grass by just cleaning it up and, keeping the grass mowed and trimmed and edged and looking nice. No, if you have a field of grass and you need wheat, you're going to have to plow the whole thing under and start all over again with new seed. And that's what Christianity is about. It's about replacing the old human nature, gutting it entirely. In some sense, there's a very popular, it has been for over a century. It's not new. In fact, though some people seem to think it is. And by new, I just mean within the last couple of decades. There's a question embodied by a 4-letter acronym that fits this perfectly. A lot of non-Christians like to mock it. Sadly, a lot of Christians do too. And that question is, what would Jesus do? It's not a trivial question. It's not one to take lightly, particularly if you happen to be a Christian. Because that's really the core of Christianity. If you want to surrender, if I want to surrender my life, that starts with rolling out of bed in the morning, and instead of asking what I want to do, what's on my agenda, what does he want me to do? What should I do, not what do I want to do? Sometimes, if I'm doing the right things with my life, those things are going to overlap or coincide exactly. And do not even begin to think that I am pointing fingers. This is the hardest thing for me to do, is to give up what I want and my direction, my control. But that simple question, as I roll out of bed, there isn't always an answer, what would Jesus do, to every scenario and problem that we face in life. The heat in my house has been out for a little over a day. What would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would be cold unless he was also a mechanic or decided to miraculously fix the heater, which he could do, but he never used his ability as God to perform miracles that benefited himself. So unless he was with a bunch of really cold people, he would probably be cold. So there isn't a WWJD answer to every problem in life, but when there is, maybe I should be asking that question more often than I do. Maybe, just maybe, these folks that walk around with those WWJD bracelets that we so often like to make fun of, maybe those folks are really just visibly and simply reminding themselves to put on Christ. And doing it in a way that does, in fact, help them make better decisions in life. Just a little something to think about as we head into this next week. While you do, light something you like. Enjoy your evening.